All right, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Doug Sandler from Turnkey Productions. Mr. John Browning in the fabulous South Florida setting. How are you doing today, John?
Doing good. Doing
That's good.
good. It's actually cold down here. It's like it's dipping down into the 40s. Like it was 75 this morning and it's 40 this afternoon. It's a big drop for us. So we don't know what to do.
I heard that my now fiance. Now you may not be aware of this.
Oh, congratulations. I
Got
did not know
engaged.
that. All
Yeah,
right.
over the holiday I got engaged, but she is in Orlando, Florida, at a podcasting conference right now. So she's not too far from your neck of the woods. I am sure. And she said it's freaking cold in Florida.
Yeah, I went out even from this morning. I went out this morning, I was fine. And then this afternoon, I went outside just a few minutes ago and it was like really cold.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well,
well, cold for me.
I
Yeah.
have some issues here in Southern California. We got a little wind, so I have a lot of leaves in my pool today, but it is 75 and sunny here. So, but that's
There we go.
pretty
There we go.
typical every
All the
day.
people up north hate us right now.
I understand. I understand. Well, I am deserved to be hated because I talk about the weather constantly to all my East Coast friends, and they are not because that's where I'm from. So for me, moving here, even 8 years later, I've lived here for 8 years. Even 8 years later, I'm still excited every day that I wake up, and I'm like, the weather is going to be nice today. Very
I'm the
nice.
same way. Yeah, it's like at Christmas time and you can walk out in your bare feet. That's a good day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is good. That is good. So you presented me with a couple of scenarios, and I wanna hand it to you in just a quick second because it's so typical that the environment that you walk into every day as an advisor and somebody that helps with planning, you walk into these very unique scenarios. However, I don't know that this topic that you're going to bring up, somebody's going to say, well, that's not going to happen to me or that couldn't happen to me. This could happen to everyone that you know at some point in their later life. And so I want to, that's enough setup for me. I want you to give this setup without giving, of course, any personalized or custom information together about a specific client. But the scenario I'd love you to share with our listening audience.
Yeah, and it really isn't any one because I have a few that are in this sort of in this position. They may not be quite at say 80 years old yet, but they're either looking to retire or they've been pushed into retirement. And a lot of folks now are getting pushed into retirement that have a great skill set, but this whole automation and AI is just at the very beginning of reducing the number of jobs out there. It
Right,
just is,
right.
right? It's just, there's no argument about it. It actually is happening. And suddenly you're in a position where do I have enough money to make it? Because I'm in good health. I'm likely to live longer. The statistics are telling me that I'm living longer than we used to. How do I do this? And the statistics are a little bit unnerving because the bottom line is that currently there's about 500,000 people in the workforce that are over 80 years old. I looked up the statistics on this. So that's twice as many as there were in that age group back in 1990. Now you're saying that's a long time ago, but the fastest growing
Yeah, yeah.
portion of the workforce right now is 75 or older.
And that number is not going to get any lower. It's as we live longer, that number is only going to get higher. And I just want to give a caveat for those that are in our listening audience that are thinking, well, this doesn't really apply to me because I'm 65 years old or I'm 60 or I'm even 50 years old. Just advance your world 20 or 30 years and we don't want you to be in the same scenario that John's going to set up for you. So don't tune out because you hear 80 years old and you're 50 and listening to this also applies
Right.
to you because look, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's work on the solution to this now so that we don't get caught against in a corner in 20 or 25 years when you're thinking about that golden age of retirement. So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but let's keep rolling.
No, no, that's you're absolutely right because we tell our kids, right? See, I'm 57, right? So I'm almost 57, and it's like we always tell our kids, just put a few dollars away. You can't believe how big of a difference that's going to make. We tell our younger adult kids this every day, and yet what I find, and I talk to folks in their 50s and 60s, early 60s all the time And they think that they've done all the right things because we were all taught
Right.
max out your 401k, and maybe they weren't able to max it out, but they contributed though, and they were consistent about it. But did they pay a lot of attention to it? And
Mm,
do they realize everything else that goes into it? Because their parents had that thing called a pension plan,
right.
and they really didn't pay any attention to it. They just retired. They got a gold watch. By the way, if you're 65 and you actually get a gold watch when you retire, you should be very, very happy
You're
because
part of
not
the
many people do
point.
anymore.
Oh, oh, you know, those of you that are in your 20s or 30s and listening to this episode, you may not even be aware of what the word pension is because
That's
really,
right.
who even pays that any longer? I don't know that aside from a unionized activity or someone that maybe works in the government sector, I don't know that private corporations are even doing these things anymore, are they?
Not many of them. Basically, you have to be, maybe a teacher or work for, some sort of government agency, and then you might have a pension now.
Right, right.
But there's not a lot of them available, and certainly not to the extent that they used to be. It used to just take care of your whole retirement. Now, if you do have a pension, it might be a portion of your retirement. But the idea of a pension, in case there's somebody out there who doesn't remember or know what those are, it was essentially an annuity that guaranteed a payment for the rest of your life. And
Hmm.
the funny thing about this is, these days, a lot of people out there will tell you that an annuity is this horrible, really bad thing that the insurance company provides. Well, then all those very happy people that have a pension and, by the way, social security,
Right,
those two things that everybody wants and everybody, nobody seems to complain about are actually annuities.
right, right.
And they provide a guaranteed, and I can't say that very often, a guaranteed amount every single month in your mailbox for the rest of your life. And they were wonderful, wonderful things, but they just rarely exist anymore. And they were made and managed by people like me. This is what I've done for 35 years. The people that managed these, this was their zone of genius. They
Hmm.
figured out how exactly to do this. They're consistent, and you didn't have to worry about that. You didn't have to get upset if the market dropped because you knew you had a pension.
So John, how do you avoid the age-old question of I thought I had plenty, but now I'm looking for work and I'm 80 years old, or I'm X years old and I feel like I'm too old to go back to work because you know what? I don't want to, or I want to enjoy this part of my life a little bit more than, standing in Walmart or working in fast food or being a greeter. And certainly you don't want to be in a position to be doing any heavy lifting or any kind of stuff like that. So
Exactly.
how do we prepare someone so that that question is not asked?
So I think the first thing is, let's talk to the 55, 65-year olds. The
Okay.
number one thing is to keep in mind that you may not have someone who is um, actually managing your portfolio in a way that will solve this problem for you. If you're doing the oversimplistic thing, I'm just going to throw it into the S&P 500 fund and my 401k and not really make any plans.
Hmm.
That's probably going to be one of those scenarios where you could get to, I've retired, I've lived for 10 years into retirement, and now I'm running out of money. That
Yeah.
is a very common scenario, unfortunately. So do some of that planning, talk with somebody who didn't learn it from a YouTube video
Right.
like this, or like there's a lot of gurus out there that'll tell you 10 different ways to do things. Actually doing it is a lot different. It's that age old idea, right? If you were in a plane with a few friends and you all decided to go skydiving, and then one of the friends looks at you and you're the leader and says, "Oh yeah, who packed these parachutes?" I said, "Well, I packed it. I learned it on YouTube the other day."
I'm
And
like,
I
I
mean, this is the rest of your life, right?
right,
this
right.
is this is serious stuff. And if you're not getting the right kind of advice and not executing on that advice, you could be in real trouble and be perfectly happy and think you're doing fine because you're doing what you were told was the right thing to do since you started working.
All right. So some of the things that I think that people would probably or maybe doing not correctly is they were overly conservative, maybe in
Yeah,
some portions of their pre-retirement planning. They're holding on to cash. They have cash like savings. They fell into like some sort of tax trap that they can't get out of. Like, so are there practical solutions that we can share with people today that I know we're not dealing with a one size fits all audience,
that's
but
right.
are there some things that people want to think about this early so that it could trigger a, hey, yeah, I really do need to talk to John and his team over at Guardian Rock now?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to number one, especially those that are in like the later edges of the 60s and going into 70. Many of them have put way too much, in my opinion, of their portfolio in low yielding assets. They've been overly conservative, and in doing so, they haven't really kept up with the inflation, which is your purchasing power.
Right.
So, Pat, we were doing this analysis a couple of years ago, and we actually went to the grocery store and we looked at what used to be you'd buy a pack of 6 hot dogs. Well, a lot of times now you're not getting 6 hot dogs, you're getting four. And they've actually, it's called
Right,
shrinkflation, right?
right, right.
So you don't quite notice. It seems like you're paying the same price, but you're not getting as much. The same thing with ice cream, if you've noticed that. It used to
No,
be
no.
you would
Quarts, now
get
it's
a
all
gallon.
pints. Oh, I get,
Yeah, it used to be you go and you get a gallon.
oh
Go
no.
try and find a gallon of ice cream now. It's not there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So now they only have, I know like if I go and grab a pint of Ben and Jerry's, I used to be able to get that for under $3. And I'm lucky where I am if I can get it for under $7 now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But a pint is a pint. Now, if they go to a metric measurement and it's less than a pint, I won't know. It'll just look smaller to me, but it will still be the same price.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you're seeing all kinds of stuff that make you think that things aren't maybe going up in price, but they actually are, or it makes you think they're not going up as much, and they actually are. So, if you're too conservative and you're not keeping up with inflation, plus you're getting taxed on
Mm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, my rate of return is 4% in a conservative investment. Well, take out your taxes, especially if you happen to live in a high tax state like maybe California,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting a state and federal tax on that. And then you have inflation eating, suddenly you're at almost, if not actually at a negative real return.
What I heard you say is Roth. That's all I heard you say right there. Maybe I could be wrong, but I
Yes.
heard you say Roth. Did I miss
So
that?
no, that is exactly, well, it's one.
One,
It's
right? That's
one of
one.
several answers,
Right,
but it's one of the major ones. And it's really interesting to me. Even CPAs, so even your accountant will often think about, well, how much tax am I paying this year? I want to minimize the tax I'm paying this year.
right.
And they won't think about the tax that you're paying over your lifetime. Now,
We
granted, you may not live that long or whatever, but
we just had
bottom
this.
line is, I would say, in my experience, roughly 90 or maybe a little bit over 90% of the time, the answer to the question, should I roll to a Roth, is yes. It might not be convert the entire amount over to a Roth that particular year
Right.
is yes, but converting and starting to convert and doing the math on that is almost always a yes.
One of the things that we just had this conversation not 2 weeks ago where you and I were talking. I had a conversation with my accountant, and my accountant said, "Go ahead and put it in the IRA." And then I called you and said, I really think you're better equipped to put it in the Roth. Pay the dollars now because the future value of that money is going to be much more when you're earning interest tax free on that Roth. So it's worth paying the 3 grand in taxes now rather than finding another vehicle to put it in other than the Roth, which is pay the taxes. So in that particular case, 100%, I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, the thing that people tend to forget is the whole idea of investing is that you have more money later than you have now. It's grown. So you think about that. The government's not dumb. They play the long game for the most part, right? So they want you to keep making more and more money. When they tax you later, it's on a bigger amount. Would you rather pay taxes on $100,000 or $200,000?
Right, right.
So, I mean, that's oversimplifying it as well, but most people don't really think about it that way. Over time, how much is that going to grow? And then you pay taxes on a much larger amount. So, if you do the real math and balance all of those factors out, again, over 90% of the time, the answer is yes, you should convert to a Roth.
All right. So, what strategy should we be sharing with that person eyeing the future and looking at the I don't want to be 80 and working through what I feel should be my retirement time, or I want to be able to enjoy my grandkids instead of having to leave my grandkids to go to work at at a store.
Yeah, I think there's some other things too that we should address. So let's move a little bit further along. So you're say you're 65 or 70 and you've decided to retire.
Hmm.
And there's a school of thought out there that says you should keep, a year. Sometimes people will tell them, people, even financial advisors say 2 years of cash or cash like investments that, again, are actually probably losing you money in terms of
Right,
purchasing power.
right,
And the reason for that, and it's very correct to say that sequence of returns risk is a real thing. So, what happens if your big chunk of change, your whole retirement is invested in the S&P 500 for simplicity's sake,
hmm,
and you have 2 years in a row where the market is down maybe 10% one year and 15% the next year and a little bit down the next year. Well, suddenly that big amount is down by that percentage amount early on in your retirement. Not only were you withdrawing as it was going down, but it was actually going down. You can't recover from
right,
that.
right.
That
It's a
sequence of returns risk, and
Yeah.
it is real and it is scary if you happen
That's
to
like a
retire
double
at the
hurt.
wrong time.
It's a double hurt.
It's a double hurt. And that can literally cause you to have to go back to work when you're 75, 80 years old because you did not plan correctly for that. The problem with being overly conservative and just saying cash and 3 or 4% returns
Right.
is that your purchasing power goes away on more than is necessary. There are other ways to manage that risk other than just straight cash, really low yielding investments. So sometimes people get poor, in my opinion, very poor financial advice that isn't really thinking that through, just being overly conservative. That's number one thing that I see. Or then being overly aggressive is not good either
Right.
because you have that sequence of returns risk as well. So the so what really is neglected, I think, is cash flow. And if you've listened to me very much, I talk about this all the time. No matter the weather, cash flow is better is one of my key phrases. I've got a lot of one-liners. And even if the market is screaming higher, it's been a great, like this past year was a great year. In even my younger clients in their 30s, yeah, I do have clients in there. I even have clients in their 20s, and they have cash flow coming into their portfolio. And what do we use that cash flow for? Not to fund their ongoing daily needs. They're making money and they're doing well and they're actually funding their accounts as they go.
Hmm.
But that cash flow automatically gives them what we call dollar cost averaging, no matter where the market is. So if the market's down, we're buying even more shares of quality companies. If the market's up, we're still buying shares of quality companies because you have this thing called momentum investing that things that are going higher tend to go higher still. So, and active management is still very important. You want to make sure your portion control is correct.
Hmm.
So when things, you love Tesla, you love Palantir, you love artificial intelligence stocks, you get overweighted towards those, and then you have a major downturn,
Yeah, that could be
and
bad.
all of a sudden you can't do anything with it. If you're constantly shaving a little bit off and rebalancing that portfolio, which is what we do for folks every single day, then you're going to be in much better shape as well. The whole thing should be complex. It's not even just complicated. Like we were talking about working on our cars. A
Right.
car is like a complicated piece of machinery, right? There's a lot of moving parts, but they're quantifiable. You know which parts do what, and you can look it up. And there's only a certain number, maybe 1,000, 2,000 things that it could be, right?
That's it. Seems to I'm always chasing one of those gremlins somewhere
Chasing
along
one
the
of
way in
those
my
down.
process.
But with the markets, there's an infinite number of inputs. You've got 7 billion people, maybe more than that now, on the planet, all making emotional decisions for reasons we don't
Right.
know. There are
Hmm.
politicians that are making decisions for reasons that we don't fully understand. All of those things impact the market in one way or another. That's an infinite number of possibilities. So it's a complex system. And if your plan doesn't account for complexity, not complicated, you can get yourself in real trouble.
So if you were to, and I'm not going to make you give me an exact number, but if you're in a position to be able to recommend not only funds and stocks and all of the other stuff that's out there in the actual market, but also the products themselves, because it's not just what you're buying, it's what vehicle that you're using to buy it with. I mean,
Correct.
it could be an annuity, it could be an IRA, and the IRAs could be simple, it could be a Roth, there could be any number of options for you. I know one of the things that we're going to talk about in a future episode is the importance of your real estate, your primary residence. What are you using that for? How are you using the equity that you have in your property? There's got to be, you're right, an infinite number of options, and just looking at one and saying, this is where I'm going to put my eggs in that basket so I can watch it and not have professional advice. I think you're short-sighted if you're looking at doing it on DIYing your own future or your own retirement.
Yeah, and it is difficult. I get why people are skeptical. I really do, because unfortunately there are some bad actors are out there. And you know what? Here's the thing. There are bad actors in every industry, unfortunately, and I wish there was a place where I could say that everybody had your best interest in mind. The truth is that that's just not the case.
Yeah, yeah,
So it can be nerve-wracking. Who do you trust? Well, I know I trust myself. Well, here's the problem. Your zone of genius might be in fixing a car.
right, right.
It might be in heart surgery or brain surgery. If you're a really good brain surgeon, I do not want you operating on me if you are also a really good at investing, because that means you're not spending enough time learning your craft. Right?
So if somebody was in our community and they wanted to find out more about what we're talking about today, because I know there's a lot of complexity and there's also a lot of specifics that are involved with each individual as they're approaching that retirement age, or even if they're not approaching retirement, but just approaching the idea of, I don't want to be that X amount years old and having to think about going back to work. I know there's no guarantees except for, death and taxes. We know that for sure. So
But
what's the
taxes
best?
are not guaranteed.
Okay,
There's
all
a
right.
cup. There's 3 ways you can pay zero taxes. I
Okay, well,
always like,
that's a good teaser. That's a good teaser right
yeah,
there. So, would you share with someone when they get on the phone with you three ways not to pay taxes?
that's one of the first things we talk about. Yes.
Okay, that
Yeah.
could be a. Did we talk about that on a past episode? Have we gone
A
through that?
long time ago. It's been a while. Yeah.
It may be worth revisiting that because I don't remember any of them. Now you've got my curiosity up here.
Yeah. There's 3 ways to never pay taxes.
All right, well, that's a good teaser, and that's a good spot to. Unless you have anything that you want to add to what we've talked about today, do you have another age group or any other specifics that you want to add?
You know what? That's probably for a whole nother episode. That how to 3 ways not to pay taxes at all on your income. The one thing I'll leave people with today, folks. First of all, none of this could be financial advice because we're addressing a whole bunch of people, right? But the other thing that I wanted to address too. So say, you know what, you're frustrated. You're like, great, all this stuff is great, but I'm 75 and it's looking bad. It doesn't look like I'm going to have to find something to work. My best advice to you is number one, don't, don't just do it without talking to somebody who really truly does the math of your personal situation. Number two, if say you do have to do it, do something that you like. And obviously, you have to think about your physical capability, your mental capability at this point, because as we get older, I mean, we just can't. I mean, I'm 57 and my knee does not work nearly like it
Recovery
used to.
time is a lot longer than it used to be after going to the gym. I can tell you that. It used to be the next
Yes.
day, I'm okay, but I'm a little achy now. It's like the next month, I'm a little
Yeah.
achy too. I'm working on that
Yeah,
at
it's a little tough.
61.
It is very, very much so. So, choose something that you can do that you're not going to be absolutely miserable at. Also understand that ageism is real. It's very difficult. You are right. If you're frustrated, it's difficult to find a job. It might be easier, and I'm happy to put you in touch with people too that can help you with this. It might be easier to find your first client than it is to find your next job once
Wow.
you get up in age. So think about that. Why not just go out there and use your expertise, because you're much more likely to be valued for all of your experience when you're older at a smaller mid-sized firm to provide that can't afford maybe a full-time person with your kind of expertise,
Right.
but they can afford a few hours of your time.
All right. Well,
So people don't think about that.
before we send anybody back to work at any later age, I want them to first talk to you. So your first step
Yes.
is to get online, check out the show notes. There'll be links to reach John directly. But why don't you share that information with them so they, in case they're not checking or don't know how to check the show notes, John, you can tell people how to reach you.
Yeah, just down below is those show notes. So just kind of click at the bottom of the video, you can find them. But grab your cell phone and bring up the texting app. And if you text the word life, just LIFE to 321-421-5213, you'll get a text with a link. Follow that link. I'm not going to send you a bunch of extra texts. I'll send you one or two. All of those links will give you a bunch of free information, so you don't even have to talk to me, or schedule some time on my calendar, or go to guardianrockwealth.com, exactly like it sounds, guardianrockwealth.com. And there's a contact us section, along with a lot of information in the resources section.
All right. Or if you know how to get to the show notes, just click the link in the show notes.
And even easier.
John, thanks for hanging out with me. Another episode. We'll be back next week with another exciting topic with John. Thanks for being here, John.
All right, thanks.